Ready or not, the world is going digital. Between the automation of TMF health checks and inspections going remote, some changes are just here to stay. Today on the State of TMF, our expert panel, including special guest Jamie Toth from Beijing, will reveal some of their predictions for what the future of eTMF technology holds. They'll discuss all the tools needed to prepare you for inspection and how you can leverage technology to ensure positive inspection outcomes. At the end of the day, no matter what technology you have or don't have, the most important thing is to make sure that your team is aligned with your TMF vision and your story is consistent and complete. The State of TMF is officially in session. Let's get into it.
Welcome, everybody, for I think it's our 9th or 10th even State of TMF live podcast. We're coming to you today live from our headquarters in Montreal. This is a very special episode, and we've got two amazing panelists with us today. So Jamie Toth from Beijing and our very own Donatella Ballerini, who's over with us from Italy for a few weeks. And so we're having a great time actually spending some FaceTime with Donatella as well. And today we are going to be talking about everything related to tools and technology for inspections and inspection readiness, which I think is a pretty big topic that we probably feel quite strongly about. I know I do. I'm pretty sure that these guys do too, because obviously TMF is all about being ready for an inspection, right? It's the basis of inspections. It's super important that we are inspection ready and that we have the right tools to be able to manage that process properly. So I want to, our session today is going to be very sort of informal, as it usually is, interactive. We're just going to kind of go through, I think, the stages of inspection readiness and going through an inspection. So we'll sort of kick things off by talking about how we prepare for an inspection. So you get that notification. Hey guys, we're coming in 2 days time. 2 days, maybe 2 weeks time, 3 weeks time. We're interested in these studies, these sites, and it's kind of action section. So, all right, we need to get ready for this inspection. Obviously, I think that there are a certain number of things that we all each day, very common things that typically see in all pharmaceutical companies when they're notified of an inspection, and specifically within the TMF team. And the first thing that we need to do is start to work out, okay, well, what do we need to look at? What do we need to prepare to make sure that we're ready for this inspection and that we understand, well, do we have everything? Do we have issues? If we do, then we need to document them. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because I know that it's a big job, especially if you've got a study that's been going on for several years. It's quite complicated. You've got a lot of sites, a lot of documentation. Maybe it's quite decentralized, a lot of organizations, and you've got a lot of artifacts. How do you sort of go through that and make sure that everything is ticking? And I think today, what you guys have done in the past is obviously doing all of these sort of manual verification. So you're doing all of the cross checks and making sure that everything's being received, and it takes a long time, right?
It's a big challenge, I would say, because we always say that TMF is the storyteller of the clinical trial. And so all this document is not just a matter of checking each single document, that core principle, the quotation practice. That let's say is quite easy. It takes time, but we've got standards, so we can check them. The most challenging part is really to make the links between the documentation and the data inside the documentation. So, for example, you've got a monitoring report, but then you have to check is it compliance with your monitoring plan, or is it a monitoring letter, follow-up letter. So all these cross-checks that tell the story of the trial takes really a lot. But when you are preparing for the inspection, this is part of this preparation stage. So absolutely, I think that nowadays it's one of the biggest challenges because it's manual effort, which is time-consuming and resource-consuming.
Oh, I agree. And doing the check to the CTMS, like you said, with the different visits and making sure that those visit reports are filed in the TMF, as a starting point. And then there's so many other things.
So, I mean, I think one of the things that we could think about in the future is, well, how can we maybe automate that a little bit more? So I think that it's like an 80-20 rule, right? I think probably like 80% of the checks that we do are quite straightforward and fairly easy to do. It's just that there's a large volume. And so the problem is we just don't have the resources or time to do those checks. And then there's the 20% that are really probably more complex and specific and require probably quite a lot of knowledge about the process that the architecture documents it to be able to perform those checks. So I think we can look towards data management, because I think data management, and if you look at it, it's really focused on trying to make sure that the data that we had is clean, that it represents patient safety, it represents patient charts. It makes sense so that we can then sort of have confidence in the analysis that's done and to demonstrate that it works. The drug works. It's safe. Have you guys ever thought about, sort of the concept of edit checks and how we can apply that to TMF?
Yeah, I mean, to get us out of an Excel file where we're actually doing it manually, filling things in, doing manual checks, maybe using workflow in the system to confirm things, but an edit check library or something like that would be great just to sit on top of everything so that we don't have to do so much manual work.
Right. And I think, what about, because obviously there could be a lot of types of checks. And for one organization to define all of that, it's actually taking quite a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we...
studies.
Right. So how can we sort of come up with something maybe that we could use across the industry?
Do you have a for?
But do you think that there's an opportunity here to maybe come up with standards for edit checks, something that we can,
Yeah. So chunk it out maybe by a process area.
Right.
And my expertise, group goes up to state, that is different from the trial level.
Yeah. And then I think if you were able to develop a standard libraries of edit checks that we can systematically apply as people are uploading documents into the TMF already, because I think one of the issues that we had when we do these periodic reviews or we're doing a review in preparation for an inspection is we discover issues, but people have moved on. They're there or things have changed. Something that happened 2 years ago, no one can remember.
So this to start, a best practice could be start your storyboard from the beginning. Right? So the protocol is approved, TMF plan is created. The first entry in your storyboard could be the protocol approval date. The version number 1 is the first entry in your storyboard, and then as the TMF story unfolds, the storyboard gets updated so that when people leave, roll off, and what have you from either sponsor company or CRO, third party, you get capturing that knowledge as it's evolved 2 years later, and nobody who's on the trial is aware of what that.
So storyboarding, and that's a really big thing, right? When we're trying to get ready for inspection. It's a lot of things we do, right? We build storyboards. It helps. And I mean, why did you build storyboards?
I think that, as Jay said, that sometimes storyboarding is not used, and it should be, because sometimes it's just used for very exceptional occasion that has particular situation, such as explaining the change of a CRO, maybe COVID, so something that was really planned, so that you have better clarification of the issue. But as she said, I think that an yearly storyboarding or an ongoing storyboarding can really, bring benefits to your story.
Right.
Because it's up to, even for a handover between study teams, members, or maybe, even to, if a trial lasts a lot, so lots of things happen, you can easily understand all the stories since the beginning in a quick way, So I think that it's a very best practice that should be implemented since the beginning without waiting for, the wrong occasion, try to fix it again and have a solution for that.
Okay.
So I think that in the checklist of inspection preparation, storyboarding is absolutely a bullet point.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And I think to your point, Jamie, if we can develop a mechanism for creating storyboards electronically.
Oh, in there.
Yeah, it's all in the system. So why not? So if we could create some kind of, automatically generated electronic storyboard that integrates all of the events that are occurring in the study, obviously this requires also some kind of process model, so we know what events are occurring, and then attach things like, there was this deviation that, we had to produce this note to file, or there was this artifact that we couldn't triple it because there was this issue. So we've got the full picture, and we've got the narrative there, and we can then use that to form our functional reviews. We can go through the storyboard with them and say, okay, well, this is what we're seeing. Does this correspond to reality? Are we missing something? Yeah. So it provides us with the basis to answer questions and to understand what happens. And also, so I think to sort of train people to make sure that they're on the same page. Obviously, we have storyboards to describe things that have happened in the study, but there are other types of storyboards that we'll use in the study as well.
I think that, for example, sometimes the meaning of storyboard can be misunderstood with not to file, because sometimes you use not to file to explain something that is an exception or doesn't make sense from a chronological point of view or from a logical point of view.
Yes.
So I think that even the distinction between storyboarding and not to file, where to use this narrative, why the purpose of these two tools must be very clear in the company to avoid, misuse one or the other one. At the end, you need to have this complete story and this consistent message for this sector. Because I think that one of the other benefits of storyboarding is really to have everyone align on the message. Because, if something happens, you can have your perspective, I can have my vision of the story, and I can tell something different for you. And so this factor will say, these guys are lying something because they're telling a story about what happened. So even everyone align on what to say is very important, and that is something that storyboarding can do.
So I think if you have a combination of your live, well, not live, but your sort of the historical storyboard for the study that you can drill into and look at certain aspects. So look at the storyboards for a particular site, or look at the storyboards for a particular period of time at the study level. So you have all these different levels and dimensions that we can use to drill in and find information very quickly. It's a very powerful tool in its own right.
I agree. And I think that it's also a compliance with what regulation asks, because they ask for more transparency. There must be for more traceability. And storyboarding is traceability.
Yeah.
So,
speaking of traceability, one other aspect that you can pull into that storyboard, because your system potentially has it anyway, is who has access to the TMF throughout the life of the trial, because you have that information and you can bring that in as well, because they want to know, they usually want to see that who has access to the trial. To your point on traceability and data integrity, some of the things they're asking now is the audit trail for the trial as well.
So I can see the protocol amendment was reviewed.
Yeah.
By this group of people.
Yeah.
On this date, it was that briefed by this individual. It was distributed. So you add that full traceability by integrating your audit trail and activity log into the storyboard, but also integrating information about who had access to what. In this role to user access control. I think there's a lot of different things, even, integration with external systems like the quality system, may have all of the protocol deviations that are relevant to that storyboard as well. I think there's a lot that you could build into that.
Yeah, the CTMS pickup drive brings in all of the milestones. Exactly. So you wouldn't have to logging in and checking it yourself.
It's just there. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think, the storyboard, it kind of becomes the timeline of the study, right? And it's all encompassing.
Yeah.
I think that is a super powerful tool that hopefully one day we'll have. You never know. The idea is there. We've got the idea, and I think it's a really useful.
Yeah.
I want to touch a little bit on reporting, because I think also reporting is super important. I like to understand what's going on, to be able to plan what we need to do. So Jamie, if you could sort of describe what would be your ideal.
I would think if I could log in to a system and be able to select a country and then see, all the sites listed and then pick key sites that I want to dive deeper into, and then have the reporting or, the software do a sampling, if you will, like on a risk-based approach to show me, all the documents, and maybe then I'll open the documents and take a look at them. But obviously being able to have that sampling on a risk-based approach in a system, in a UI, user interface, something like that would be so much easier, because we do a lot of what I just described very manually. So if a system, a software, a UI, a report could help with the sample, I think that would be helpful, because the sampling is done.
I think a lot of people in our industry today struggle with because we're dealing with a large volume of data.
And I think we might, so maybe there's manual effort that's done. You generate the report, dump it into our favorite tool, Excel, and then maybe I brought a macro on that to do sampling. But
that's fancy.
Yeah, and maybe companies are doing that, right? But if it was automated.
And I think even like having the metrics there as well, like, just being able to look at, high level, that sort of that overall, like how it's scored, to give us an indication where are we at?
Yeah.
And then to sort of be able to drill down and see that by country and then by site, by individual, where have we got issues?
Yeah.
I think that, as you said, with the risk-based approach combined, those two things, kind of gives us a really good feel. It's such a big thing, such a large volume of information. It must be overwhelming sometimes to sort of work out, where do I start with this? I like your idea around the sort of the rolling storyboard that begins at the beginning of the trial, because I think it could also, you could introduce metrics into that too, and it can drive what are you reviewing over time. So you're not doing this big review 2 weeks before the inspection.
Right.
You're doing it all the time. So by the time you get that inspection call, you're ready.
Yeah.
You're already there.
Yeah.
Because you built it into your process.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, quality by design is a little bit elusive. They're not quite sure what it means. So I think we need to be clear about what it means as well as an industry. But I definitely feel taking a proactive approach versus a reactive approach definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's about tools, but it's also about mindset.
Yeah.
And it's about people. And so I think
people, process, and technology.
There we go. So I want to sort of, obviously there's preparing the inspection. There's getting everybody trained. Everybody's on the same page. Having an environment where we have access to everything. So our storyboards, we have access to our processes. We know what processes we're using in the study. What about how do we sort of make sure that we know what systems are going to be, are being sort of generated? And how do we manage access to all of them? Well, what would be the best way to manage access to all of them?
I think that the first question is quite easy, in the sense that in terms of the list of systems, it's a requirement, even from ICGCP, to have a list of systems that you're using, that each are not just using TMF. So I think that, with a robust TMF index, when you list, for this artifact, this is the source location, so maybe it's not TMF, maybe it's CTMS or QMS, then can be, it's an effort, but it can be done. What is very challenging, in my opinion, is your second question. So, are we going to give access to the inspector?
Right.
If yes, which way and how was the process? So that can be very challenging, because, sometimes you want to show everything, sometimes not. And some of those other systems are not built the same. They may not be built study specific, right? So they're compound molecule level.
Yeah.
So getting it down to what they're looking for may not be there without other information that has to be provided.
So this is where I think that there's, in the industry, we're talking a lot about interoperability and we're in the era of digital data flow and all of that good stuff. we still have a hard time connecting systems together, especially in the operational side of the house, because standards, they're coming, they're evolving, but they're not there yet. But I do feel that in the future, what would be interesting is to have one central place where we can access all TMF relevant information and provide an easy conduit to be able to retrieve that information. So this is where I think we almost need to have something that's sitting on top of all of these different systems and that's able to communicate with each of them and know where the information is, and then leverage data standards and APIs, things like that, to be able to pull that information centrally to this one place. And it's not just about being able to navigate through the TMF and understand the story based on information that's contained within each of these systems, but it's also about completeness, for example. Yeah. How do you evaluate completeness of the TMF when the information is so spread out? And I think that if we were able to have sort of more of a centralized place where it's more of an analytics layer, right? And can read all of these other systems to say, okay, what do you have? And then register the fact that they have these things and then centralize that in one place and present it in a holistic way. It's going to be a lot easier. I think we're a ways off that, but definitely I think that's the direction. And I think that's also the promise of, ICH, M11 and DDF and all of that stuff. It's like, it's kind of this flow of information across systems for a clinical trial. And the TMF is going to be the ultimate beneficiary.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it all kind of needs to end up in TMF somehow. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the actual conduct. We've got the traditional on-site inspections where we have like our back room. Yeah. Events kind of fronting. Organizing stuff, a war room. And then you've got the room where the inspectors are and you stop calling it. We don't call it. We're not at war with it. Yeah. It's a constructive relationship. And then we've got QA, there's kind of, the bustle between the study teams and TMF management group and the inspectors. When it comes to, remote inspections, it's kind of different because they're not sitting in the room next door. And all of a sudden we need to use technology to communicate with them. We're providing direct access to the TMF, right? to the Europeans at least. So if we think about sort of that scenario, what tools do we need? Is it Excel?
No, please. I think that, for example, one thing that we usually use is that our daily job is Teams.
Right.
I realize that sometimes I write more in ink rather than emails. So I use maybe emails, to write official message or I see them, but to chat with a colleague, to have a free conversation and quick conversation, I use Teams. Now, if you imagine, the inspection, you will have the QA usually is leading the inspection. And so probably is managing like sort of official team and chat with the inspector, giving, direct answer, proper feedback, immediate feedback to the question. And then it could be a back office back teams that you use between your colleagues, between QA and the study team to understand if there is an issue or how can we solve the issue, what is the document, how to answer the question, to have this kind of facilitation between the internal team.
Right.
So I think that we should improve and even give a process to the use of these tools because now they are part of our daily job.
Yeah.
And so you have multiple MS Teams, Windows up, right, or virtual. Yeah, it's that.
Yeah. And I think you need to, we can also maybe you don't use Teams as is. Maybe you're able to create an inspection specific configuration or even, develop other tools, which is Teams, which will also allow you to, for example, QA is talking to the inspector is asking a specific question or is requesting specific information. QA can then take that, automatically log it as a request because we want to keep it at low.
Yes,
everything is possible, and then pass that through again via this sort of interactive platform to whoever needs to respond to that. They can then receive the answer, review it, all of that gets logged again, and then it's passed back to the inspector. And it's kind of this very fluid, but yet controlled sort of mechanism, which doesn't involve any email at all.
No, yeah.
Is that email? I mean, we need to stop using it. Yeah. And, and if you're in a remote environment, well, you don't have that many options.
Well, and also time, right? It has to be done in time.
Timely.
Yeah. So,
which brings, I think, I think I know where you're coming. Inspectors asking questions, and you've got your study team in front of you running around. No, they're not, because they're well prepared. They've been preparing in advance, but maybe
they're
expecting ready.
Yeah.
And storyboards, they're internal tools to allow them to tell a story, very quickly and more importantly, to tell a consistent story if they're asked by the inspector. If you've got this this big rolling storyboard, would you agree that we need to kind of chop it up a bit? What would be the benefits of being able to drill into that storyboard during an inspection? And what's it gonna give you?
A big detail on the specific area, because as you said, if I think it was a TMF storyboarding, I imagine something very big because TMF has a big story. Yeah. But, sometimes it's just a matter of one site, one specific principal investigator, something, one protocol deviation, something occurred. So it's something very specific. So if I can focus, and just on that particular, it would be super, it would be very beneficial and more efficient for the inspection preparation and even conduction.
Yeah. And
especially if there was CRO change, something like that. So you'd want that in like a timeline and then maybe focus just on that CRO change and, go to what was that all about and when, an overview of that.
Yeah. So having your notes to file or your memos or
change of the CRO and then, what got put in place after.
Yeah. And then I think, if you're applying a risk-based approach, then you can also apply that to your storyboard.
Yeah.
So you can see areas where that there's maybe it's high risk. You want to zone into that part of the storyboard and have a look at that. Make sure we've got change in CRO, kind of risky. Do we have adequate documentation? What kind of due diligence do we do to make sure that we've got everything?
Yeah.
And that CRO. Were there issues that were not closed out? And what are you doing about that? It means that you're going to come across as very organized from the inspector because you're going to have access to information. So you're not having to search for it and, being able to associate artifacts and storyboards, we can already cluster artifacts around events that are showing up in the storyboard. And this is through the use of some kind of model where we identify chemical processes and events that were happening in the study. Then it means that all of your documentation is already there. You don't have to go into 3 or 4 different places to try and find it or call the CRO because they may have it. It's there.
Yeah.
It's there. And because you've taken this proactive risk-based approach where every week or every month you're looking at these particular areas because they're flagged as high risk and you need to review them in case there is an inspection, you're ready. And your teams, they've got everything they need. And it's not just the timeline, but they've also got access to all of the processes and SOPs that are being used in that study. They have all the information about the other systems. We've already got access to the information in the other systems. So all of a sudden, you're really well prepared even for remote inspections. And I think that these tools could also maybe be used if there was on-site inspection. You think about the chat, for example.
Yeah.
Do you think that they would go for that? Or do you think would inspectors like to chat instead of?
Well, why not? I think that the most quick they get the answer, the feedback, the better it is. So I think that even to have the traceability of what they ask and what was the answer, they will benefit from it. So the only thing that maybe I can see, obviously, is that they want a process for everything. So obviously, if you're starting to use officially something, a tool like Teams or whatever can be called, obviously you need a process in place, to use it because probably there will be the official, chat with inspection and then something in the back. So how to upload documentation, if that is the proper channel, or maybe they prefer another email, so the rules must be defined.
Yeah.
But absolutely, I think that now that we are doing more remote inspection and probably even if COVID is there, but it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
I think that inspectors are preferring remote inspection because you don't have to take the fly.
Well, they can do a lot more.
They can do more. They can check more. Yeah, they can check more. That is the point. So we need to improve how this remote inspection are managing and conduct.
Yeah.
So let's do the technology.
And the other thing I like about it is you've kind of got a transcript right there.
Yeah, they already got the goals. Yeah.
With all of the attachments, everything else. And we can use technology to also filter that, slice it. So when we eventually get an inspection report and there are observations, we can understand what's the dialogue here.
Yeah.
So let's, I know that sort of time is going on and there's a few other areas I want to talk about. So we've gone through the inspection, super well prepared because we've been doing this, proactive, storyboard preparation, and we've got our edit checks that have been running. So our data is really clean. We're looking really good. Clinical trials being clinical trials, we still got a few observations. So in my experience, those observations, they come to QA then registers them quite often in quality management. Then we have to kind of manage all of the follow up, all of that stuff. And what do you think about instead of sort of registering them in QA system, if we were to if we had like a tool which allowed us to manage the not only the preparation and conduct of the inspection, but also to be able to register what was the observations, then what was the response and the corrective actions. And the reason why I think I'm asking that is because it could be interesting maybe to trend on that information so we can better understand.
It will be a dream house because I think that inspection, in my opinion, should be seen in a positive way. I mean, I know that everyone is afraid of an inspection, I know, but if you're doing your, QC, TMF QC, you're following your SOP, you're following the regulation, I think that you are inspection ready. But so you have to see the inspection as a chance to improve your process. Right. But you can't improve if you don't know, the data about what went wrong, why it went wrong. So as you said, you have some threat on inspection.
Yeah.
And now you can do that, but it's very challenging because, as you said, these information are built by QA via different systems, so they are spread within a SharePoint. I don't know. So to have everything in one portal, in one area, can be beneficial to have the lesson learned.
You can also fit into risk evaluation.
Yes,
using risk sort of algorithm. Taking that into account. It's interesting. I do think that there are definitely QA groups out there that do trends. They do a lot of trending. So I think it's, at a minimum, it's really important to have a very good close relationship with those QA groups and identify those trends with it because it's in everyone's interest. And I think if we can get better, at least better interaction between the observations and then what's actually happening during the inspection, what's the inspector looking out, why are we getting those kinds of observations? Like, do we have an achieving process or training or just being able to do that training is super important.
Yeah, it definitely is. The awesomeness does happen here, right?
It just happened right here.
It's all we had today.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of the things we've spoken about, a lot of the principles actually do exist out in other areas, especially in this fund.
Yeah.
I think that because of the direction we're going in this industry and because we're going towards much more standardization, all of a sudden it's going to become a lot easier to leverage some of these techniques for TMF.
Yeah.
So that we can automate a lot of the manual heavy lifting that we had to do to them. And even, using AI a lot more to start to look into, our documentation, trying to sort of pull out information and then, verifying that information against other information we have in the TMF, stuff that we're having to do manually today and that requires a lot of expertise. Over time, we can build that expertise into our AI, train our AI, and to identify those issues. And as an industry, I think we can also build libraries of knowledge common across the industry because we had this magic thing called the reference model that's providing us with this standardization. And so we should be able to build standard checks as well. We should be able to build standard process models, and we should be able to build standard storyboards.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
And then, leverage those things to be proactive and to always be inspection ready.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, guys, for all of your insights. That was a really interesting session. It's definitely given me a lot of ideas, and which I'm never really short of anyway. But yeah, really appreciate your inputs and for sharing knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the last episode in our inspection readiness series of the state of TMF. We'll be taking a short break and coming back to you in October for our next season. If you liked today's episode, hit the subscribe button, view the full episode with video on YouTube, and follow us on LinkedIn for more great content coming from Montreal soon. See you next time.